What is going on, Fantasy Alarm family? My name is Justin Fensterman along with Ryan Hallam and Matt Selz, and it's time for another family meetup, the Family Times podcast, helping you win when it comes to fantasy sports wagering, and in everything and in every aspect of life. And with the two winners I have here, Ryan Hallam laughing at me. What's so funny, Ryan? You're a winner.
I don't know if we're quite the people to talk to about winning in life, but hey, we'll do our best.
Dude, you do a good job, man. You look like you're 21 still. So, hey, come on. You got that youth look on your side there. Somebody else, Selz, you and I are kind of looking of age, my man. How you doing, dude? How's everything on the circuit in NASCAR?
It's good. I actually get to, not have to switch back and forth between a NASCAR race and a football game this weekend because the NASCAR race is on Saturday night and there's no F1. So I get pure football happening on Sunday, which I'm excited about. So, yeah, just going to grill out. I have to figure out what I'm going to grill, but going to have myself a barbecue.
Bro, grill everything. That's my motto. Just grill everything you got, man.
I think I owe the kids some pizza, so I might grill some pizza.
Out of anything that you're going to grill pizza? That's what you pick? Man.
Dude, it's so much fun.
It does look good, I got to say.
It does, actually. It does. I actually am going to do that with a friend of mine who actually just got himself a pizza grill the next few weeks, a few Saturdays from now. So I'll get to
Uni?
What's that?
Did you say you got yourself a pizza up, like a pizza?
Yeah, like a pizza oven, some kind. It's like you make your own pizzas, you put it in the oven, and yeah. So that's what I'm doing in the next few Saturdays, and I'll let you know.
What else is awesome about my grill, Fensty? I can go from making pizza to then putting the rotisserie on it and rotisserie cooking wings so that when you're done eating the pizza, the wings are ready.
That sounds like one of those old Fisher-Price tables where you can make it a ping pong table, a pool table, and then air hockey afterwards.
That's why I bought my grill, man.
Man, if you didn't live in Nebraska, I'd be coming over.
See, here's the funny thing, Ryan. He lives in Nebraska. He has instant access to Omaha steaks, and he chooses to grill pizza instead of those Crown Cap ribeyes that are so good. He has no
grill steaks too.
You can.
Just owe the kids a pizza, so,
I hear you on that. Well, let's talk about, because we owe our family members here some content and some answers to some questions. And Ryan Hallam, being a huge fan of the 49ers here, man, gotta ask you, dude. Big pickup on the waiver wire in fantasy football, Jeff Wilson. But you're also hearing other names come into play as well when it comes to the 49ers backfield. So with Elijah Mitchell now sidelined for 2 months that we're hearing, what are your thoughts on this backfield? Because we all know that it's not just the running backs, it's Trey Lance and it's Deebo Samuel as well. So for those that picked up Wilson, what exactly are they going to be getting on a weekly basis, in your opinion?
I think he's going to get the majority of the carries. I don't think he'll quite get what Mitchell would have gotten, but I still think he'll get 60% of them, which is still a lot for San Francisco. I mean, they do run the ball a great deal, maybe more than anyone else. But it's hard to even know still what the offense is after week one, because it was basically a monsoon that they played in. I like some of what I saw from Trey Lance. I didn't like other things I saw from Trey Lance. Like, I do think at some point he's going to round into a very good player. I don't think that's this year. I think there's definitely going to be some bumps in the road. But as far as the running back situation, I think Wilson was the pickup. I tried to grab him where I could. They have Tyrion Davis-Price, who they left was healthy and active last week. Clearly, I would imagine he'll be active this week. Jordan Mason was someone who kind of popped off in preseason a little bit. But like you said, yeah, Deebo is certainly the question was answered immediately how much he's going to carry the ball. I believe he had 8 carries on Sunday. Even Brandon Ayuk had 1, but I don't expect him to get like a regular running role. So I do still think Wilson was a pickup. I think he'll get the majority of the carries, and he's proven like in small doses. I mean, I wouldn't want him for 17 weeks, but for a few weeks, a short shot, he can give you some nice production.
So I asked Fensty this question when I was on my hit for his show on Better Sports Network. Which works out in whose favor? Does Jeff Wilson get more catches, or does Deebo get more carries?
I think Deebo gets more carries than Jeff Wilson gets catches.
That's what I said, by the way, too, yesterday.
Yeah, I don't. Wilson, and I had to look back at his stats, but just from watching it and remembering, I don't see him as involved in the passing game as other 49er running backs. I think that, if they're going to do a running back out of the backfield, I think they'll either do screens to the receivers or one of the rookies will be a little more involved in the passing game than Wilson will be.
This week is going to be very difficult for a lot of reasons. It's because every week in fantasy football is difficult with all the injuries that we have to deal with. But when you have players, because we're still very close to our drafts and everything like that, it's one thing when you're playing the matchups, but it's another thing if you're overdoing it. And I brought this up to Selz yesterday, Ryan, but Alvin Kamara, someone that just has a horrible matchup, got bottled up by the Tampa run defense last year in both games, dealing with the rib injury, even though it's not looking like it's going to keep him from playing. But yet we drafted this guy in the second round, and I just feel like we're fully reliant on receptions and him getting into the box. And I feel like we're trapped. We're stuck. We can't bench Alvin Kamara. Then it's for who are you benching him for? But he's got such a crappy matchup.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, you go into the year knowing that when you draft him, being in the division with Tampa Bay, that he's going to have two really tough games. Basically, I think you really are. I mean, that sounds stupid, like you're not capable of benching a guy you draft in the first round, but I can't do it. So you kind of just hope he finds his way into the end zone with maybe 5 catches, and that turns out to be a pretty decent fantasy day. It's kind of the best you can do.
That was kind of my answer too. Like, you can't bench a guy that you drafted in the first round in the second week of the season. Like, it's a rough matchup, but if you were afraid of this matchup, you shouldn't have drafted him. And B, if you do draft him, who are you sitting him for in the second week of the season? Like,
right.
Given what we saw out of the running back position last week, is there anybody that's on your bench that you're convinced will outperform Alvin Kamara? Probably not.
No, or even like Jeff Wilson. I'm not starting Jeff Wilson over him.
Right. Or Dameon Pierce, not starting him over over Kamara either.
I don't know how any of us start him, Dameon Pierce, this week. I mean, after we saw those very, very just disgusting snap count numbers where Burkhead was on the field over 40% more than the guy. I have Dameon Pierce. I have Dameon Pierce and Cam Akers on a team. I don't know how I'm going to start either one of them. I'm looking on my bench and I'm like, Mostert? Oh no, I'm stuck on one of my teams because I got that running back combo.
So what you're saying is you unintentionally did the 0 running back strategy and it's not working for you.
Well, I drafted Najee Harris in the first round, and that's what I'm dealing with right now. I was able to pick up Jamal Williams off of waivers. Now, we have to wait and see. It's still, we're still where we're at in the week. So we have to wait to see if we get any finalization, if anything of this DeAndre Swift health issue comes into play. Because if for some reason he's out, then I've got a decision to make. But I'm trying to secure my depth. But I didn't think that we saw what we're going to see, or rather, I didn't think that was going to happen to Cam Akers, where you get virtually nothing. And then Dameon Pierce, Burkhead, catching passes all over the place. It's one of those things where I just don't know how you could start either one of these guys. I'm stuck, but for those that have a plethora of running backs, you might have to look at another option.
I mean, I think both guys will see a better share of the work this week. I'm not sure what happened with Akers. Clearly he didn't look good. Clearly he missed that one block that everyone saw on Twitter. But I still think he's going to do better than 3 carries for no yards. So I don't know. It's a pretty decent matchup against the Falcons. I still think he'll be okay. I don't think it's going to be Darrell Henderson all season long. But I have no answer for what happened last Thursday. As far as who's the other guy? My mind just went completely blank.
Dameon Pierce.
Oh, Dameon Pierce. Yeah. I mean, Rex Burkhead is not a 19 carry a game guy. I don't care what they think. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that was a game script or Pierce missed a block or did something in a meeting or what that was. But Rex Burkhead is not going to carry the load for 18 or 17 weeks for the Texans. It's another tough matchup against the Broncos. I mean, they have a pretty decent run defense, although Rashad Penny actually ran pretty well on the Monday night. But I think both guys are definitely in for better games. I don't know that Pierce is ever going to live to that draft status that he caught at the end of, by the end of August. But I do think he'll overtake the legendary Rex Burkhead before very long.
The legendary Rex Burkhead.
Careful. People down the street from me think he is legendary since he played in
Oh, God.
Nebraska.
Seriously.
But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what happened with either of those guys. I feel like Cam Akers is the likelier guy to bounce back this week because it is a softer matchup against Atlanta. And even if he doesn't get the quote unquote start, I think there's enough. Like the Rams should be up by enough that they could simply try to run out the clock and then give Akers some work. And yes, do we want the start? Sure, but garbage time yards count the same in fantasy football. Doesn't really matter when you get the points, just that you get the points. So I'm with you on both guys. I'm still starting Akers this week, and I'm sitting Pierce right now.
For the Washington Commanders, we had Carson Wentz as someone that was picked up heavily because he's a good streaming option going up against Detroit. And in fact, I actually missed out on Wentz because I have Dak Prescott on a team, so I had to change that situation. And I didn't get Carson Wentz. I missed out when it came to the bidding. I got outbid for him. So I actually went to the other side of that matchup and I'm going with Jared Goff. There really wasn't much else on waivers when it came to streaming, at least for me. I didn't necessarily want to go with Baker Mayfield, who was still out there. So I just ended up going with Jared Goff. But I really am thinking that this is going to be a game, guys, where there's going to be a lot of points scored. And very impressed, by the way, with what we saw from Antonio Gibson here. He was getting poo-pooed on during draft season. And it's not even only that Robinson was out that opened things up for him, but also catching passes too. And he's used to that. He was a receiver in Memphis. So if he's going to be utilized as a pass catcher more than what we've seen thus far, this guy's going to have some serious value even when Robinson is ready to play.
Yeah, I mean, I never bought the he's only going to be a punt returner, kick returner talk from the Washington coaching staff. I didn't understand how Brian Robinson, as talented as they think he is, and J.D. McKissick would be ahead of Antonio Gibson on the depth chart, given that Gibson had a pretty good year last year with basically zero quarterback help. Look, is Carson Wentz going to throw for 300 plus and 4 touchdowns every game? No. No quarterback does that. Not even Brady, not Manning, not Rodgers, not, if you want to go back through the annals of football history, nobody does that every single game. So Carson Wentz certainly isn't. In the right matchup, can he? Yes. There is the talent around him to do that. Keep in mind, he did that, and Terry McLaurin only caught like 2 passes last week. So, is there more to come? Sure. Can he do it this week? Maybe. I think we can clearly see like 275 and 3 touchdowns from him this week because that Detroit defense isn't stopping anybody. They're bad.
Yeah, I'm going to totally agree with you on Gibson. I mean, he had 1,000 yards and 42 catches last year, 10 total touchdowns in each of his first 2 seasons, and he was going to be a punt returner. Yeah, okay. I bought him up at the end of the draft season too. I think, and he came out and had a pretty decent game right off the bat with 7 catches and 58 yards on the ground. So, yes, it was against Jacksonville. Same thing with Carson Wentz. Yes, it was against Jacksonville, but like you said, this week it's the Lions. So, I mean, you might want to try to sell high on your Commanders after this week if possible. I mean, they've got pretty much the 2 softest matchups to start the season. Jahan Dotson came out with 2 touchdowns. Curtis Samuel did a million things. I'm not sure that either one of those are going to last very long. So you might want to capitalize on especially those 2 guys, and maybe Wentz I guess you wouldn't have picked them up unless you have something like Dak. But if you can take advantage of 2 good weeks, you might want to think about doing that.
I mean, trading quarterbacks in fantasy is hard.
It's tough. It is tough.
Basically, nobody trades for quarterbacks because once you get out of the top 3, they're basically all the same. But yeah, I would definitely sell high on Curtis Samuel because there's no way he's repeating what he did last week. I would keep Terry McLaurin though. I think last week was not a sign of things to come. I think it was just a weird fluke of a game. And keep Gibson because he's going to be their starting quarterback. Because let's face it, even when Robinson is healthy, it's not like he's coming back to a full role. The guy got shot. This isn't like he strained a hamstring or something. He got shot. So how many hits can he actually take without, doing damage to the parts that are supposed to be healing from being shot. So I think it's Gibson's role to lead the rest of the way.
We'll have to wait and see on that. And guys, you were talking about trading, and Ryan, you mentioned selling high on Commanders potentially after this week. And something I wanted to bring up, I wanted to get your take. I don't think I know where either one of you stands. I don't remember bringing this up in previous episodes, but trades and trade vetoing. This is something that, as a fantasy football commissioner, that I'm very against trade voting. I think it should all be the commissioner decides. And if the commissioner is crooked, you don't join that commissioner's fantasy football league anymore. You learn your lesson one time. But for the most part, in my experiences, fantasy football and fantasy sports commissioners haven't been crooked like that, where they tried to skew the league towards themselves. And I just think it should be the commissioner's say whether or not a trade should go through. And most trades should go through unless it's obvious collusion. And I just feel like there's almost a strategy with people in a league voting down a trade just to prevent a team from getting a player that can end up being a final piece to a championship build. And I've seen that happen before many times. And guys, I don't know where you stand, Ryan. I don't know where you stand. You mentioned trading. I don't know where you stand on trade voting, but I'm very much against it.
Yeah, same. I mean, you'd hope if in week 11 the first place team trades with the last place team, that the commissioner would do something and look into that real carefully. But yeah, I don't think you're right. Human nature is to preserve your own chance at the championship. And I believe we have talked about this. And I don't know if it was Matt's day that he just felt like playing devil's advocate or if he really believed it. But I know you and I were on the same page of that. So sometimes Matt likes to have fun and just argue with us and take an opposite stance for fun. But
I'm in a fantasy baseball league that has voting on trades. And it takes, out of this 20-team league, it takes 4 people voting against it within 72 hours, and then it goes to the whole league. And if the, more 1 over the simple majority vetoes it, then it doesn't go through. But that rarely happens in our league. So, look, my problem, I trust the masses more than one person. Because what happens if the commissioner is in a place where the trade directly affects his standing? Isn't it? And you've put the power in the commissioner's hands. Okay, you just said human nature is to protect your own standing, right? Well, if I'm commissioner and this trade goes through and that's going to bump me out of the playoffs, why would I let the trade go through? Whereas if you let the group of people, a bunch of them won't care. Therefore, it would go through. So,
well, you have to hope that the commissioner is above board and does the right thing for the league. Yeah, we did.
I mean, okay.
And you're right. Not everybody will. Not everybody will. So that's the difference between a good commissioner and a bad commissioner.
Right, but here's the problem with that. You don't know until after you've invested money to join the league and you're in the middle of the season and then a shady tree goes down that screws you out of any chance of having a shot at the playoffs. Now you've wasted a year of your life and money to find out that the person you thought was a good person wasn't, right?
Yep.
Whereas if you have checkpoints along the way, it doesn't get to that. Right? I was in a league in which the commissioner let his sons do whatever the hell he wanted, and people literally brought up that this guy traded a dude who was on IR for a starting running back, like the 6th ranked running back, and he was like, "Seems like a fair trade," because it ensured his sons were going to win a championship and steal everybody else's money. I left that league, but the problem is the buy-in was like $200, and it was with neighbors. So now, not only am I out money, I also hated my neighbors because they're a bunch of shady people. Okay? So I've been in leagues where there's been no votes, no commissioner oversight, and most of the trades are fair there. Right? So I'm either for no oversight, and if the trades are going through and you don't like them, leave the league. Fine. Same way as commissioner thing. Or you're in a league with league voting that's either simple majority or you have to get to a remarkably high percentage, like, I don't know, MLB's Hall of Fame. Like, don't make it 4 dudes can vote no out of a 12-team league and block the trade, because that means 2/3 of the people didn't care enough to have a problem with it, right? It's got to be at least like 60%.
Yes, majority. And then Selz hates his neighbor now.
Going on in Middle America.
I don't live on that block anymore either.
That's good though, because I'm sure it used to be awkward.
Yeah, it was, because I would like walk past his house all the time, and like they'd be talking fantasy football. I'm like, what? Like, how can you do this honestly? Like he bailed his son out so he could beat me in the championship when like it was nuts.
Yeah, that's pretty BS right there. All right, Selz, and that's you just gave a good example right there. But that's very few times that I've never run into a crooked
sure, the home leagues I've been in for more than 5 years at this point, I don't have a problem with. But again, it's not a commissioner thing. It's like, it's set up the way that I like them. So find a league that works for you.
Sure. No, look, at the end of the day, it's how you want to play, whatever it takes to play and have fun. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about and why we even exist, because fantasy sports are fun as hell. And that's how we want them to stay.
Well, here's another question for you, though. What about trade deadlines?
I think there has to be. You want to trade going down right before the playoffs start.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. Right, like there are leagues where you can like non-playoff teams can't do anything once the playoffs start, right? But that doesn't stop the last place team from giving the first place team a boost right before the playoffs, right? I know fantasy baseball is different, but in fantasy baseball, we can't trade in our league after like a week after the All-Star break. Like you're locked in at that point. So for football, I would say like trade deadlines like after week 6 or 7.
I would say week 10. I think the week 10 area is fine. I think that's where they most go. I think there should be a deadline. I'm fine with being a little bit more forgiving with that. I think week 10's at a perfect spot. You still have a few weeks now with the extra week of the season. You still have a good 4 or 5 weeks before the playoffs, so it's nothing shady.
Well, the championship is what, week 16?
17 most of the time.
Yeah.
17 now? Yeah. So the playoffs would go, what, 14 or 15 through 17?
In my league, they go 15 through 17.
Yeah, it depends if you have, like, how many teams make it and if you have a 2-week championship and whatnot. But, yeah, if you're in a league that doesn't have a trade deadline, you should push for that because that'll also help a lot of this.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned that because I'm in the top 3 right now. The standings are constantly moving in the final few weeks of my fantasy baseball league, and it's a keeper league. And someone just made a trade in this league, and I'm like, huh? I was literally, and it was a trade involving Mike Trout too, and I was just like, wow. And I didn't, I thought about it, and I'm like, well, there's keepers and stuff like that, but no, it's 3 weeks before the end of the year.
Yeah, there still should be a deadline even with keepers.
Yeah, so Dynasty, there's a deadline.
Yeah, it's something I'm going to have to talk to the commissioner about after the league and being like, no bueno. There needs to be a trade deadline there.
Yep, for sure.
I'm with you there on trade deadlines in fantasy league Selz, even in keeper and dynasty leagues. Guys, let's talk about the family table with what we're bringing. And I am actually going to start and talk about, because one of the sports I'm not going to try to make like I'm this obsessive tennis fan or anything like that. But I actually do like watching tennis. I really do. I always have. I've always said that I think tennis athletes are the most athletic athletes out there. You need strength. You need stamina, the agility factor, the endurance. There's especially if you're a singles tennis player, the shape you have to be in, unbelievable. But as we got the news this week, and this was something that was pretty expected, Roger Federer retiring from playing. And I don't know where you guys stand on Federer versus Nadal in tennis, but I'll say this. Back in the 2000s, at least to me, for a lot of sports, because a lot of my focus back in the early 2000s was baseball and basketball. The NBA was going through a very trying time. The league was going through a very big downward spiral. a lot of issues going on, the malice in the palace, issues between the league and the players. There was just a lot of that. Baseball, you had the steroid things going on. The Mitchell report gets released and everything like that, and we're questioning what's real and what's not. But then if you look at other sports, yes, in golf, Tiger Woods in the mid 2000s was still doing his thing. But then a rivalry and something that has been a constant though has been great competitive tennis, especially when you have two athletes that play very differently, like Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, add in Djokovic in the late 2000s. So now you've got three guys that are all vying for these titles and these Grand Slams. Their matches were just so exciting. And while I felt like sports in a lot of areas in the 2000s were going through a dark time, tennis to me was that light. And I've watched a lot of documentaries. Big Jimmy Connors guy from all the documentaries I've watched. I have a Jimmy Connors autograph. Michael Chang was watching him back in the 90s, Sampras, Agassi. I mean, even some of the younger, like Leighton Hewitt in the early 2000s. Tennis is exciting. Roger Federer made it exciting, and it handled himself with the utmost class of just about any other athlete that was at his level worldwide. And that's why I am actually going to, for the family table, I'm bringing the respect to Roger Federer on an excellent career.
He is certainly one of the all-time greats. He and Djokovic and Nadal all have 20 or more Grand Slam titles, which is just impressive. That means Sampras is fourth now on the list, I believe, for men's Grand Slam titles. My personal favorite of the three was Nadal. I simply liked the way he played the game more than the other guys, but I did respect Federer and Djokovic. So yeah, it was kind of expected. The guy's 41 years old. We just saw Serena retire at 40. So it's about the life of a tennis player, man. Like running around the tennis court at 40 years old is no way I would do that even recreationally, let alone in Grand Slams. So I'll go next here, and mine has to do with when you're trying to figure out matchups in the NFL and you're looking at things like odds. You kind of got to figure out what Vegas is going for here, because I tweeted this out the other day as I was doing the game previews for Fantasy Alarm, which include, game spread and over-unders and whatnot. And I found this to be very interesting. So you had Indy and Houston tie. You had Green Bay and Minnesota play last week, and Minnesota housed them. You had Denver and Seattle. Seattle won reasonably convincingly. San Francisco, Chicago. Chicago won. Yes, it was a monsoon. Chicago did win. Jacksonville and Washington. Washington won pretty decently. And then Philadelphia and Detroit. Philly wins. Okay? But then for week 2, Denver is somehow a 10-point favorite over Houston. Don't understand that one at all. Green Bay is a 9.5-point favorite over Chicago. San Fran is a 9.5-point favorite over Seattle. And somehow Detroit is favored over Washington. I don't get really any of these lines. Like, yeah, they're home teams, right? But should Denver be a double-digit favorite over Houston?
The Rams are 10.5 over the Falcons, too,
Yeah.
who played a really tough game last week against the Saints.
Yeah,
I
that one I have less of an issue with because...
But Selz, Aaron Rodgers has crushed the Bears.
Yeah, but that was with Devontae Adams. He doesn't have him. He's literally thrown under the bus three weeks in a row saying they've got to do this better. They've got to do this better. They've got to block better. They got to run routes where they need to be. Like,
I'm with you. I thought those lines were wild.
But having, 5 double-digit lines in an NFL week is insane. Like, usually you get 5 of those a season, not 5 in 1 week.
It's like they didn't watch last week. It was like, like going off the reputations coming into the year. They just wiped away last week like it didn't happen.
Right. I don't understand. Like, Houston played well against a solid Colts team. Right. And now you're saying that Denver should be a 10-point favorite? Why? Because they're out of Seattle? Wilson didn't look like he could run that offense at all last week.
I guess if they didn't fumble in the goal line repeatedly, it would have been a different game. But still, I'm with you.
It would have been a 10-point win against Seattle.
I mean, they fumbled in the red zone, 3 times? And at the goal line twice. But I agree. I completely agree. When I saw those lines, I'm like, did we not see last week?
Broncos should be maybe a 5-point favorite or a 6-point, not a 10. Not like
10's a big number.
Yeah. So I'm just so if you're looking at that, you're going, it seems a little fishy. If it seems fishy, take the underdog because covering double-digit spreads in the NFL doesn't happen very often at all.
And the way the NFL goes, they'll probably all cover.
I mean, who knows? Maybe Nathaniel Hackett can figure out how to call a timeout faster than the 62 times that Peyton Manning called timeout on the Manning cast in the final 50 seconds. But
I want to piggyback off Fency's real fast because it's not my family tape. But what do you think about? I always saw the hockey players were amazing because they have to do all of those things with the agility and the speed, but they also have to do it on skates, which I think
and getting hit.
I'm sure to them it's like being on their feet, that they're so good at it. But I always had a little extra something for hockey guys to be like,
they
do
get
all
a lot
those
of
things.
breaks though, because a lot of them are in lines and line changes. They're out for a decent amount.
I know tennis can go 5 hours, which is amazing, but it's like you have to do all these things and then stay on skates too. But I know by the time you get to that level,
refs. Because they got to pay attention to what's happening and skate forwards and backwards and dodge the pucks and guys hitting each other.
Oh my God, I've seen refs get checked into the boards. That doesn't happen in basketball. I'll tell you that much. Dang.
But anyway, I almost always take the family table to promote myself for my game, so I'm going to take it to promote my new Sirius XM radio show. So please listen to the Fantasy Alarm post game every Sunday night from 9 p.m. to midnight with John and Pemba and myself breaking down week one. Not my best performance week one, but I'll be back in better than ever and much better for week two.
I think you're hard on yourself. As someone who's very hard on himself.
Getting buzzed in the first episode either, but the second one got better.
I know the first episode of Getting Buzzed was my best, but that's apparently debatable.
Which is also why it's no longer available on YouTube.
No, stop. Put the glass down. That was funny. I remember that. That was
a good time. It was a good time.
But yes, absolutely make sure we got a lot of coverage going on Sirius XM, on Better Sports Network, to bring you kind of a roadmap here. Here's what you've got. You've got me and Howard Bender on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio every Sunday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. Then on Better Sports Network, you've got John and Pemba and Andrew Cooper from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. Then on Better Sports Network, Adam Ronis is hanging out 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern, representing the family there. And then you go to Sirius XM back there from 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern, and it's Ryan Hallam, John and Pemba. Hey, your family is here for you. There are no lunch breaks. There are no days off. We are here to help you win. You can give Matt Selz a follow. Remember, Bass Pro Shops night race in Bristol, Saturday night, not Sunday. Make sure you catch his content for NASCAR, along with Dan Malins at the Salesman on Twitter, Ryan Hallam at Fighting Chance. Get ready for Survivor there, Hallam. I'm ready, baby. Shot in the dark. Get rid of it, Hallam. Get rid of the shot in the dark. Come on. Let's do it, man. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. Give Ryan a follow on Twitter at Fighting Chance. I'm at Fence D Sports for family time, for all our family. We say it all the time. A family that sticks together wins together.